Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Women Patriots. I'm Brenda Ward, your host, and this is our second episode here on Speaking Out on the Lady Patriots Network, and we want to thank you all for tuning in with us tonight. We have a special guest, Publius Huldah, who will be on shortly to speak a little bit about nullification, and we'll speak a little bit about Obamacare because that is one of the big news stories coming out. As we all know, Obama lied. Nothing new there, but also some big breaking news this week coming out on 60 Minutes with the Benghazi story, the story that we have been talking about since it happened back in September of 2012, and the mainstream media has been ignoring it or accusing Governor Romney of politicizing it when he criticized the White House for apologizing for America, like he did after the attacks in Egypt, which was just pathetic. You just cannot even believe the ridiculousness of apologizing for a video which wasn't even the cause of the problem in the first place, as Laura Logan actually reported on the mainstream media last night. Interesting, is it not? But it's just phenomenal. And I kind of want to go back because I did cover this back in 2012. And I was, at the time, I was amazed that the mainstream media didn't cover it. And here's kind of what I had written at that time, because it's just mind-boggling that we're living in a state of propaganda. Our mainstream media has become nothing but propaganda, and that is pretty scary. And this, I'm going to just kind of read what I wrote back then. This was September 21st of 2012, and then I'm going to play a couple clips for you because they're trying to spin this away again, as usual, and their spin is just ridiculous. And in this article I wrote, it was like I could cite many instances of the propaganda, but none so much as the recent events in the Middle East. On September 11, 2012, 11 years after the terrorists killed over 3,000 innocent men and women, America was attacked. For the first time since 1979, an American ambassador was killed in a foreign land, and that's important, folks. That's historical. Since 1979, yes, there were attacks on embassies overseas, but this was a murder of an actual ambassador, which had not occurred since Jimmy Carter in 79. Front page and headline news to be sure, but many unanswered many unanswered questions for the media to delve into, such as how and why, and was there beefed up security in light of the date? Was there any evidence suggesting this attack might happen? Well, let's see what Jay Carney had to say.
Was this in advance that some kind of attack could take place, especially because so many embassies were taking precautions because of 9/11? Was there any advance warning at all?
I've seen that report, and the story is absolutely wrong. We were not aware of any actionable intelligence indicating that an attack on the U.S. mission in Benghazi was planned or imminent. That report is false. We also need to understand that this is a fairly volatile situation, and it is in response not to United States policy, not to, obviously, the administration, not to the American people. It is in response to a video, a film, that we have judged to be reprehensible and disgusting. That in no way justifies any violent reaction to it. But this is not a case of protests directed at the United States writ large or at U.S. policy. This is in response to a video that is offensive and to Muslims. Again, this is not in any way justifying violence, and we've spoken very clearly out against that and condemned it. And the President is making sure in his conversations with leaders around the region that they are committed as hosts to diplomatic facilities that to protect both personnel and buildings and other facilities that are part of the U.S. representation in those countries.
Sequestration as well. Members of Congress are pointing to the fact that.
So here we have Jay Carney actually coming out on the 14th, this is after the attack, and saying that no, there was no evidence that this was a pre-planned attack. No, they didn't know that they needed added security. They had no idea. And yet, on 60 Minutes, they had a witness who said that this was a planned attack and that the Department of Justice and the State Department were both notified before by multiple people, including the ambassador himself. So Jay Carney outright lied. And then they went on to politicize it by condemning Governor Romney's statement, saying that he would never apologize for America because, again, they blamed this obscure video. Well, what happened after this video was then propagated to all the Muslim states? We had 50 different attacks against our embassies overseas because our president and our Secretary of State the very next day were blaming some obscure video for a pre-planned terrorist attack that they knew was coming that killed our ambassador in Libya. And this should just be outrageous to every American. I don't care what party you affiliate with. They lied to you. They covered it up. For either there was some nefarious activities going on in Libya, as some propose, a gun running, or just because an election was coming up and they were tooting that Al-Qaeda was dead. And indeed, they were not. Core Al-Qaeda, whatever the heck that means. Core Al-Qaeda. Really crazy. So, anyway, I'm going to play a clip here now because Obama is trying to spin this. He's trying to say that he said it was he said it was terrorism the very next day in the garden outside the White House. So I'm going to play a little clip from Hillary because we're not going to let him get away with this nonsense of trying to spin reality from what it truly was.
We're still doing an investigation, and there are going to be different circumstances in different countries. And so I don't want to speak to something until we have all the information. What we do know is that the natural protests that arose because of the outrage over the video were used as an excuse by extremists to see if they can also directly harm U.S. interests.
We've seen rage and violence directed at American embassies over an awful Internet video that we had nothing to do with.
We don't know yet. And so we're going to continue to investigate this. We've insisted on and have received so far full cooperation from countries like Egypt and Libya and Tunisia in not only...
The best information and the best assessment we have today is that, in fact, this was not a pre-planned, premeditated attack.
Now, here you have Hillary Clinton, the day after, standing in front of the caskets of 4 Americans, including our ambassadors, blaming this attack on a video, covering for her State Department and her failure to be an appropriate leader, her failure to help her very good friend, Chris Stevens. Her very good friend, I'm sure her very good friend, Chris Stevens, let her know that he didn't have enough security and that he was afraid for his life. Then we have Obama. That clip was taken from September 20th. Okay, that's a full 9 days after the terrorist attack, that he was saying we still don't have all the answers, and he was still not calling it terrorism. 9 days. And that little speech there from then Ambassador Rice on all the Sunday morning shows talking about how it was a video when they all knew it was a pre-planned attack. With that, folks, I'm going to be bringing in my co-hosts we all know Barbara, and also we have a new co-host who is joining our panel, and I'm going to play just a little music before I bring them on to give you a little taste of who she is.
Within my desire there's a sea. It is everything I need. I work the soul with my hands. I give it a fertile place to expand.
And that, folks, was our very new co-host, Jude Eden. So I'd like you all to say hello. Hey, Jude.
Hey, can you hear me?
Hi, Jude.
Yeah, I got you.
Great.
Hey, Barbara. We are here and we are in studio. Jude, I love your voice and your music.
Thank you.
That cello is just so moving, and I just love it. So,
thank you. I'm glad you like it. I will sing you a song.
Very well, too. So, well, ladies, finally Benghazi makes the mainstream media.
Yeah, and this whole thing is, I'm glad there's some coverage of this, but all of this stuff that's going on with this whole cover-up and then the rekindling of it now and the I don't know, I didn't know. Did we mention that Obama didn't know? That's been coming out of the administration over and over again. This is all completely Stalinist. This is all classic communism of this plausible deniability, or, just detaching himself from any responsibility. Of course, he's known every single thing that's been going on. How could he not know? From Benghazi to Solyndra to Fast and Furious gun running. We know that they were running guns to Libyan rebels, to Libyan Al-Qaeda, and that was part of, the Benghazi, working up to Benghazi to September 11th, 2011. And this is all it's just classically Stalinist tactics. He's going after the media, and I love that every time, now that journalists are actually asking one or two halfway difficult questions, and then they're publicizing the stories afterwards when they get targeted by the administration.
Yes.
We have complete media propaganda. It's like reading, novels out of communist Russia in the 50s. It's like, or in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, any, Solzhenitsyn, read A Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich was one of my favorites, about life as a political prisoner in the Gulag in Siberia. And these are, the whole Women Patriots Show for me is, while we still have breath, we have to sound the alarms on all this, on each incremental move toward tyranny by this administration.
Absolutely. And we want to say it loud, Barbara.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do. From the very beginning, from the hearings, because I was where I worked at the time, I was able to listen to the hearings all day for a few days. And there was a good part of this information that CBS is finally coming out with. There was a good part of it that came out during those hearings that the mainstream media never even said boo about. And for them to come out now, a year and a month and a half later, it's appalling. These, people would say to me, well, what about Benghazi? So what? Are you kidding me? As if it was no big deal. But we do know from the hearings that happened in October of 2012, shortly after, that it was, they knew right away that it was an attack. They knew right away that Ambassador Stevens was denied their more security. They knew early on, well, this is how they tried to spin it. There wasn't enough money. That's how it was being spun in the beginning. And then in the hearings, again, October 12th of 2012, it was mentioned that money was never an issue. But it also came out that Hillary wanted that to be her permanent station. And CBS, although 60 Minutes did do a pretty intensive report, how much did they say about Obama or Hillary?
Oh, yeah, nothing.
Nothing.
Nada, which is just insane.
And they're bringing this out, and why are they not saying, well, we all know, it's already been determined that Hillary was incompetent. Or no, it wasn't even Hillary. It was the people below her, the State Department underneath her, because Hillary didn't know anything either.
Oh, I know. Yeah, deny.
Right. And this administration is talking to us. We already know the facts. And they're talking to us like we're dummies.
Oh, yeah.
And I have so had it because, he knows what he's doing. With the stand-down order.
I know nothing.
Yeah.
From Hogan's Heroes. I know nothing.
This stuff comes out. This important information all along, and people are like us that are very on top of it. And when we talk about it, people say you're crazy.
Right.
And it's like,
well, and
no,
this is somewhat vindication, Barbara. This is somewhat vindication. Because now people can kind of look and say, well, oh yeah, Barbara was talking about that.
The question I have about that, and because I've been thinking about this for, since we knew that people would start to see the light on Obamacare. And I kind of wanted to do, I did do, in several of my pieces that I published on politicalanimalblog.com, my blog, I said everything that conservatives objected to about Obamacare has been proven to be true.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the question that I didn't, put out pointedly was, will liberals start listening now that they can kind of see? And I think that, I don't know, this is one of those truths that I've learned kind of growing up. Something my mom always said was that people will often not tell you if you've convinced them. They won't tell you that you're right.
Right.
But more people are indeed waking up, because Obamacare is hitting their bottom line. Now, the question is whether they're going to be convinced that we should go further left with a single-payer system, which is what the administration has wanted the whole time, and they've said so, and people within the administration have said so. Yes, we do want to. I think it was Reid who said, yes, we absolutely want a single-payer system. The question is whether people will be duped even further, that we should go to a single-payer system, which other countries are moving away from because it's unsustainable, or whether we'll turn instead down the right path, which is to open it to free market competition. We can basically make the insurance companies practically null and void if we open the free market. We can buy what we want. And Barbara, you're always commenting about how Obamacare is unconstitutional. And just for the benefit of the listeners, one of the main reasons Obamacare is unconstitutional is because if you require citizens to purchase something, that requires somebody else to provide that thing. And if you're requiring somebody else to provide a service, that's called slavery. And we ended slavery in this country, decades and decades ago, over 100 years ago. So we don't accept this kind of tyranny where we're forced to buy a service, any service, buy any product, and we it's sort of in our nature, our human nature, to balk at the prospect of somebody else choosing what's good for us. In other words, Obama has said, well, maybe you wouldn't keep your care. Now that's what they're saying. Maybe you wouldn't keep your care, but Obamacare will provide you a better care. Well, better according to whose standard? Mm-hmm. Now we know what any government standard is. It's lower than the standards we hold for ourselves. And nobody can care about you. Nobody can care about you or your medical health, your well-being, like you can yourself. Nobody can make those decisions better than you can yourself. And anybody who tells you that you can't make those decisions is enslaving you and has designs on your liberty.
Absolutely. And here's the big thing. Here's the big thing that ties these two, not just these two, but many more scandals, is that coming out in the papers today, that Obama knew all along that that 40 to 67% of Americans were not going to get to keep their own insurance. He knew this. We were trying to tell people this, and they weren't listening. They were calling us all kinds of names, but he knew this. Mm-hmm. Although he deny.
Right, and we knew that he knew it, and I think that more people, I kind of do want to say, look, we told you so. Will you stop listening to these fascists, who don't want you to be free? You would rather have, right-wing Christians who believe, at least in some standards, even if they can't always uphold those standards, than these godless bureaucrats who are accountable for nothing. You can't go, oh, well, who is it, who said they would provide, and now, it's the government's fault, this ubiquitous amoeba.
Well, and it's almost shameful, Jude. I am just almost ashamed of our fellow women in this country that keep falling for this nonsense that's spouted from the left constantly about how the GOP is anti-woman and they want to take away all your rights and they don't want you to take birth control. Because, some people have that personal belief. But just because they have that personal belief doesn't mean they're going to enforce you can't have your birth control pills.
Well, of course, it's totally absurd. And a bigger point on that in particular is, I just want them to apply half of the critical eye they had for Bush. If they applied 10% of that criticism, the left spent the 80s, 90s, 70s, 80s, 90s, screaming about inequality, screaming about not being told what to do, screaming that the government should get out of the bedroom. But it's okay for them. They have not one word, cat's got their tongue, when somebody else's liberty is in jeopardy. Because, ladies, how I choose to defend myself is none of the government's business.
Mm-hmm.
How
right.
many weapons and what kind of weapons I use, if I want to use an AR-15 as a woman to defend myself, that is none of the government's business. If I want 30-round magazines, that is none of the government's business. Who is some bureaucrat to tell me? And there were rape victims and crime victims, women who come out and said, don't take away my guns. I was a victim of violent crime, and the only way I can protect myself is if I can carry a weapon. Now, the government is all about invading your privacy in that regard, and the left has absolutely nothing to say about that. They don't see that it's the exact same thing. It's actually more important because the whole supposed constitutional right to privacy, there is no such thing. It's just a thing they made up. Your body is private because this embryo that you created by having sex is attached to your body, that nobody can tell you not to kill it.
Right.
But
in other words, there's no consequence for your behavior.
Oh.
You went out and engaged in the behavior that created this embryo, but you don't have to pay any consequences for that behavior.
Right, and the government should not interfere with your right to kill that embryo, but they should be able to interfere with an individual's right to defend themselves, and the government should be able to ask you, what weapons do you have in the home? Absolutely not. It's the same invasion of privacy, only the one is worse than the other, because the one invasion of privacy is a fake invasion of privacy. It's because we're talking about the right to life, of course.
Right,
so.
right.
Hey,
and here's, go ahead, Barbara.
Also, too, going back to the unconstitutionality, the way the system works is it goes through Congress.
Right.
Obama just can't decide, what laws he's going to pass and which ones he's gonna say, oh, okay, this is the law of the land, but I'm going to make this change. It doesn't work like that.
Not at all. And he doesn't get to choose if it's the law of the land. Everybody has to live under the laws. And all of these actions, from Obamacare to these invasions of privacy, to him changing laws, to not enforcing the borders, to the new renewed push for amnesty. This is all about lawlessness.
Yep.
And when there's lawlessness, there is chaos, and people are afraid, and they want them to turn to the institutions. They're weakening the military. They want the men to dress like women.
Oh God.
with the girly hats.
Oh my God.
Hats. Shame on them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed for my Marine Corps. But this is all about lawlessness, weakening the individuals who believe in self-reliance, weakening the individuals and the sort of set of people who believe in the Constitution. We understand that protects the rights that we already have, regardless of any government. The Constitution simply guarantees those rights, and when there's lawlessness, some people don't have to obey the laws. They can change the laws whenever they feel like it. Again, it comes back to classic communism, Stalinism.
Right, and with
Absolutely.
all the chaos that's going on, they think they can do whatever they want, and this is all part of their wanting that martial law, and they want to be able to actually control us. Yep, the communist style, the Alinsky rules for radicals. Mm-hmm. And it's heartbreaking watching this country go down that way, But finally, the mainstream media is finally saying something bad about Obama. He lied.
And you know what? All they're doing is asking a couple of questions, and this is why questions are so powerful, because you don't have to. They're not posing their opinion. They're not actually saying anything about him. They are asking questions. And what does he do? He puts the kibosh on them. And I hope that more and more of them will start asking these questions and ask the questions that they should have been asking the whole time. I mean, really, they are the slime balls of the slime balls, because they feign this integrity, and I love Karen Sigmund's line about imagine honest journalism.
Yeah.
And we definitely have to follow up on that bumper sticker, because that is so right. If these people just apply, all you have to do is ask questions, watch what he does,